The champagne glass slipped from her hand just as the entire room went silent. It shattered against the marble floor, sending tiny pieces of crystal across the entrance of the city's most exclusive hotel. But nobody looked at the broken glass for long. Everyone was staring at the woman standing beside it, a woman who had arrived alone, wearing a simple navy dress that cost less than most of the handbags in the room. She had barely taken 3 steps inside when a familiar voice cut through the laughter behind her, sharp enough to reopen wounds she had spent 3 years trying to bury. Her ex-husband stood there in a perfectly tailored suit, one hand wrapped around a glass of champagne, surrounded by wealthy friends who knew only the polished version of his life. He looked her up and down, smiled cruelly, and asked whether she had finally come to find a rich husband. She felt every eye turned toward her. She felt the old humiliation crawling back into her chest. But before she could answer, the hostess suddenly reached for the radio clipped beneath her jacket. Her expression changed completely. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the button. And what she said into that radio made the laughter disappear. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness can change a person's life, that people deserve second chances, and that someone's worth should never be measured by money, please take a moment to like this story, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need a reminder that life can change when we least expect it. 3 years earlier, nobody in that hotel would have recognized the woman standing at the entrance. Back then, she had been married to a man who seemed to have everything. He owned several restaurants, drove expensive cars, wore watches that cost more than her yearly salary, and knew how to make everyone around him believe he was successful. She had fallen in love with him when they were both young, long before the money arrived. She had believed that they would grow old together, that they would struggle together, and that one day they would look back proudly at everything they had built side by side. What she had not understood was that some people change when success enters their lives. Her husband had slowly stopped seeing her as his partner, and started seeing her as an inconvenience. He began criticizing her clothes, her job, her friends, and even the way she laughed. At first, she thought it was stress. Then she thought perhaps she wasn't doing enough. Eventually, she realized the truth. He no longer loved the woman who had stood beside him when he had nothing. The divorce had not been dramatic in the way people imagined. There had been no screaming in court, no dramatic accusations, no shattered furniture. It had been colder than that. Her husband simply decided that she was no longer useful to the life he wanted. He told her that she had become ordinary while he had become extraordinary. He wanted a wife who could walk into expensive rooms and make people believe his success was even greater than it was. She left with a small apartment, a modest amount of savings, and a heart that felt as if someone had quietly removed a piece of it. She did not fight him for his money. She did not demand half of his businesses. She only wanted peace. The first year after the divorce was brutal. She worked long hours at a small event planning company, often coming home after midnight with aching feet and an empty refrigerator. She learned how to repair leaking faucets, carry heavy boxes herself, and smile at clients even when she wanted to cry. There were nights when she sat on the floor of her tiny kitchen eating instant noodles because she was too exhausted to cook. Yet every morning she woke up and went back to work. She told herself that survival was not failure. She told herself that starting over at 32 was not the end of her life. It was simply the beginning of a different one. Her greatest comfort was her younger brother, who had always believed in her. He lived in another city and called whenever he could. He reminded her that the marriage ending had not made her less valuable. He told her that someday she would look back and realize that losing the wrong person had saved her from losing herself. She wanted to believe him. Slowly she did. Then came the invitation. The invitation was from the hotel where her former husband was hosting a charity gala. She almost threw it away. She had no reason to attend. But her employer had been hired to coordinate part of the event, and because her company was short-staffed, she had been asked to assist personally. It was professional work. Nothing more. She told herself she could walk into that hotel, do her job, and walk out without allowing the past to touch her. She was wrong. The moment she entered the ballroom, memories attacked her. The polished marble floors. The enormous crystal chandelier. The scent of expensive perfume. The soft music. The waiters moving silently between tables. It was the same hotel where she and her ex-husband had celebrated their first anniversary. Back then, he had held her hand beneath the table and promised that they would always remain a team. Now his photograph was displayed on a giant screen beside the words announcing his newest business achievement. She swallowed hard and kept walking. She wore a simple navy blue dress with long sleeves, modest black heels, and a small silver necklace her mother had given her. Her dark brown hair was pulled into a neat low bun. There was nothing flashy about her. She had dressed for work, not attention. Unfortunately, attention found her anyway. Her former husband spotted her from across the ballroom. For several seconds he simply stared. Then the smile appeared. It was not the smile she remembered from their younger years. It was the smile of someone who believed he had won. He walked toward her with several friends following behind him. He looked more successful than ever, but she noticed something she had never noticed before. His eyes were tired. His smile was forced. His expensive suit could hide many things, but it could not hide the exhaustion in his face. He stopped in front of her and looked at her dress. Then came the question that would have destroyed the woman she used to be. He asked whether she was there to find a rich husband. His friends laughed. She felt her face burn. For one terrible second, she was back in their apartment 3 years earlier, standing beside a suitcase while he told her she would never fit into his world. The same old shame returned. Her hands became cold. Her heartbeat became loud. But she did not lower her eyes. She looked at him and calmly explained that she was there for work. He laughed again. He suggested that perhaps she should take advantage of the opportunity because wealthy men were everywhere. She could have answered with anger. She could have reminded him that when he had been broke, she had worked 2 jobs to help pay his bills. She could have told his friends that the suit he was wearing had been purchased with money he once borrowed from her savings. She could have exposed every secret she knew. Instead, she simply said that she hoped he was doing well. That response unsettled him more than anger would have. Because she was no longer asking him to recognize her value. She had already recognized it herself. She turned to leave. That was when the champagne glass fell. The sound echoed across the marble entrance. Everyone looked. The hostess immediately stepped forward. She was a woman in her late 40s, with short dark hair and a calm, professional expression. She had been working at the hotel for more than a decade. She knew every important guest, every wealthy family, every politician, every business owner who considered the hotel their private kingdom. But the moment she looked at the woman in the navy dress, something changed in her face. She looked down at the guest list. Then at the woman. Then at the radio attached to her jacket. She reached for it. Her voice became urgent. She quietly asked security to confirm whether the special guest had arrived. The ex-husband frowned. His friends stopped laughing. Nobody understood what was happening. The hostess looked toward the ballroom doors. 2 security officers immediately moved into position. Then the hotel manager hurried toward them. The woman in the navy dress stared in confusion. She had no idea why everyone suddenly seemed to be waiting for her. The manager stopped several feet away, straightened his jacket, and respectfully welcomed her. The room became completely silent. Her ex-husband's smile disappeared. The manager explained that the hotel's owner had been waiting for her arrival and had instructed the staff to notify him immediately. Her former husband looked confused. The woman herself was even more confused. She had never met the owner. At least, she thought she hadn't. Then a distinguished older man entered the ballroom. He was not wearing an extravagant suit. He wore a simple charcoal jacket, a white shirt, and no tie. His hair was silver, his posture straight, and his expression unusually gentle. The woman recognized him instantly. She had met him 6 months earlier. Not at a business meeting. Not at a luxury restaurant. Not at a charity event. She had met him on a rainy afternoon outside a grocery store. That day, she had been leaving work when she saw an elderly man struggling with several grocery bags. One bag broke, spilling vegetables across the wet pavement. People walked around him without stopping. She had stopped. She had helped him gather everything. She had carried his groceries to his car. She had refused the money he offered. She had simply smiled and told him that someone had once helped her when she needed it, and she wanted to pass the kindness forward. The older man had thanked her. They had spoken for perhaps 10 minutes. She had forgotten about the encounter. He had not. The man walking toward her was the owner of the hotel. And he remembered everything. He told the room that he had been looking for her because he wanted to personally thank her. He explained that the woman had no idea who he was when she helped him. She had not known that he owned the hotel. She had not known that his family owned several businesses. She had not known that the elderly man struggling with groceries was one of the wealthiest men in the city. She had helped him anyway. The room was silent. The former husband stared at his ex-wife. The same woman he had mocked for wearing a simple dress. The same woman he had accused of being ordinary. The same woman he believed had come to hunt for a wealthy husband. Now the richest man in the room was publicly thanking her for an act of kindness she had never expected anyone to remember. The hotel owner explained that after their encounter, he had quietly asked his staff to learn more about her. Not because he wanted to reward her immediately, but because he wanted to understand what kind of person could help a stranger without knowing whether that stranger could ever help her in return. What he discovered surprised him. He learned about her work. He learned about her divorce. He learned that she had refused to take advantage of her former husband's wealth. He learned that she had spent months helping struggling families through her event company, often arranging donated food and clothing for community programs. He learned that she had never told anyone about those things because she did not want praise. The owner then made an announcement. He offered her the position of Director of Community Partnerships for a new charitable foundation he was establishing. It was a position she had never applied for. A position she had never dreamed existed. A position that would allow her to use her organizational skills to help thousands of people. The room erupted in applause. But she did not smile immediately. She looked overwhelmed. She asked why he was offering the position to her. His answer was simple. Because he had watched what she did when she believed nobody important was watching. That sentence broke something open inside her. For years, she had believed that success meant becoming impressive enough for people to respect her. She had believed that she needed money, status, beautiful clothes, and a powerful name before she could feel proud of herself. But standing there in that ballroom, she finally understood something. Her worth had never been waiting for permission. It had been there all along. Her former husband slowly approached. The confidence had disappeared from his face. He looked at her differently now. Not like someone beneath him. Not like someone he had outgrown. Like someone he had underestimated. He tried to apologize. He admitted that he had been cruel. He admitted that he had mistaken money for success. He admitted that he had spent years believing that the person with the most expensive things was automatically the person with the most value. She listened. And for the first time, she felt no need to punish him. She forgave him. Not because what he had done was acceptable, but because she no longer wanted his past behavior to control her future. She told him that she hoped he became a better man. Then she walked away. Not toward another man. Not toward another wealthy life. Toward herself. Months passed. The new foundation became one of the most successful charitable organizations in the city. She worked harder than ever, but this time her work felt different. She was no longer trying to prove that she was worthy. She was building something meaningful. She created programs for single parents, helped small community businesses, organized scholarships for children, and developed emergency assistance programs for families facing sudden financial hardship. She became known for remembering people's names. She remembered the janitor who had worked through illness. She remembered the young waitress who was saving money for college. She remembered the elderly couple who needed help repairing their home. She remembered everyone. Because she knew what it felt like to be overlooked. 1 year after the night at the hotel, the foundation hosted its first major anniversary event. The same ballroom was filled again. But this time, she was not standing near the entrance wondering whether she belonged. She was standing on the stage. Thousands of people had benefited from programs she helped build. The hotel owner sat in the front row. Her brother sat beside him. And among the guests was her former husband. He had changed too. His businesses were no longer expanding at the reckless pace they once had. He had started giving more attention to his employees and had quietly donated to several of her programs. When she saw him, she smiled. There was no bitterness. Only peace. That night, she told the audience that sometimes life takes something away from us because we are holding on to a version of ourselves that was never meant to survive. She said that losing everything can be terrifying, but sometimes losing what we thought we needed is how we discover what we truly have. She spoke about kindness. She spoke about dignity. She spoke about how a person should never measure their worth by the size of their bank account, the clothes they wear, or the people who approve of them. Then she told the story of an elderly man whose grocery bag broke in the rain. The audience laughed softly at the memory. But then she paused. She explained that she had thought she was helping a stranger that afternoon. In reality, the stranger had helped her too. He had unknowingly reminded her that goodness still mattered. And sometimes one small act of kindness could open a door that money could never buy. The hotel owner stood and applauded. The entire ballroom followed. She looked around the room. Once, this place had made her feel small. Now it reminded her how far she had come. She thought about the woman who had entered that ballroom wearing a simple navy dress, afraid that everyone would judge her. She wished she could go back and hug that woman. She would tell her not to be afraid. She would tell her that being ordinary was not something to apologize for. She would tell her that the right people would never make her feel small. And most importantly, she would tell her that her life was not over simply because someone else had stopped believing in her. Sometimes the chapter that feels like the ending is actually the first page of the best part of the story.